So hello, welcome back. Today we'll be learning how to make a list of reorderable items in React. So it's just going to use a drag and drop interface, and so I've just created a React app, and in that we have these two variables here which we're going to be using to store the current index of the item, and that will come in later and I'll explain more about that. We've also got some dummy to do items that we'll be using to actually just build this app. And so yeah, we'll get into it now. The first step will be to add in our list of items, and so we see here we've got an unordered list, and in here we've got some properties that we're going to define later. These will be what will actually allow us to create the drag and drop functionality. And in here we've just mapped our to do items each to a list element. They've all got an ID and they've set their draggable property to true, and the reason we need that is because then we will actually be able to drag them if that's false, and then we also have an ID so that we can uniquely identify them when it comes to implementing the drag and drop functionality. The first step in doing this will be to define our drag start and undrag methods, and these are essentially just going to share the same code, and this is where we get the old index. So by old index I mean as we start dragging it, it's going to have an old index of where the list item was before, and so we're going to get this by looking at its ID, which if we remember is now the index of the item in the array, and we're going to cast that to a number because it says a string by default, and so we cast that to a number, and then we have its old index and we can set the old index variable up here to that. The same thing with undrag, and so the reason we need to do this is so that then we have a defined old index, so by the time we drop it we have a new index and then we can move it in the array. Step 3 will be to define our drop event, and so we just define that as so. We get the target again, and this time we're setting the new index equal to its ID, because if we remember we started with an old index where it was before, and now that we've dropped it we need to get the new ID. And so the way this works is that we have a target, which is where it's going to be dropped, and it'll find the closest list item and then it will get the ID of that. And so that's how these works. They find the closest list item, they find the ID of that, and then we make it a number and we've got the index essentially, and then that way we can reorder them. So in our browser now we'll see that we have all our list items here, and if we drag them, we can drag them, however they're not dropping in the right positions, and that's because we've yet to actually implement that part. We need to now go back into our code and then update the UI every time we get a new drag and drop event. So we update our onDrop method like this, and as you see here we've got essentially the same code that we had before where we get its new index, but this time we make a copy of the array of the items as they were previously, and then we get the current value of the current item. So for example, go shopping, and then what we do is delete that item from the array and then insert it into the new place, and then update the actual React useState version of the array, and then that will then update the UI. And then we come back into our browser and we can see here now that once we move it, everything's moving. And so yeah, it's pretty simple once you know how. If there's anything you'd like me to cover, please let me know. Apart from that, if you've liked it, like it. If you want to follow. Thanks for watching.